The Federal and Devaki Specialty Hospital jointly present the Madurai Marathon 2024 Run for Health on Sunday, October 20th, 2024. Entry is free for all.
Hello and welcome to the Federal. The last and final of the three phases of J&K Assembly elections, Jammu and Kashmir Assembly elections, happened today. There were 40 seats for which polling happened. 16 of these seats are from North Kashmir, the districts of Baramulla, Kupwara, and 24 of these are from the Jammu region, predominantly the Jammu district, the Kathua district, Samba, the constituencies in these. We'll discuss today the 24 assembly segments of the Jammu region that went to polls. We'll touch upon the districts or the assembly segments in North Kashmir a little later, but the 24 seats in Jammu that went to polls today, why they are important, what is it about these seats that are of great consequence to the BJP and personally perhaps also to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, the last assembly elections, as everyone knows, in J&K happened in 2014 when J&K was still a state. 2019, after the abrogation of Article 370, the state was downgraded to a union territory. This is the first election that is happening in J&K in 10 years. 10 years ago, 2014, when the elections were held, out of these 24 seats that are going to polls today, now, of course, the names of certain seats have changed because of delimitation, but out of these 24 seats, 22 were won by the BJP. One more seat of Nagrota was won by the National Conference's Devinder Rana, who is now contesting on a BJP ticket. He had moved to the BJP, quit the National Conference some time ago. So 23 seats with BJP legislators, one in which an independent had won. In the immediate aftermath of the abrogation of Article 370, a lot of the justifications that were given were by the government, by the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, had a lot to do with the narratives of justice for people from Kashmir, of people from Jammu, of ensuring Jammu's prosperity, and of ensuring a level playing field for both Jammu and Kashmir. Historically, the major complaint from people or residents of Jammu had been that they had to play second fiddle to the Kashmiris because the levers of political power in J&K, the erstwhile state of J&K, were always held by a Kashmiri chief minister. And the majority of the government was also controlled by Kashmiri politicians. There were also issues of identity where people of Jammu felt that they were being given a raw deal by Kashmir. The Kashmir Valley is, as is known, a Muslim majority area. Jammu, on the other hand, is a Hindu majority region. And so there was a lot of talk of prosperity, of justice for Jammu when abrogation of 370 happened. And expectedly, perhaps because of this narrative, in the immediate aftermath of the abrogation, Jammu was very welcoming of the government's decision. It was predominantly in Kashmir where you saw wide-scale protests, although protests of more of a silent kind because the entire Kashmir Valley was practically shut down. People were put under house arrest. All political leaders were put under house arrest, and so on. And so, whatever dissent for the abrogation it came from the Kashmir Valley. Jammu was largely welcoming of the move. Now, cut 5 years later, the assembly elections of today. Now, over the last couple of months, in fact, even in the Lok Sabha elections, there are two Lok Sabha constituencies that fall in the Jammu region. Both these constituencies the BJP had won in 2014. It also won in 2019 and again now in 2024. But the 2024 margins of victory of the BJP MPs were very low compared to what they were 5 years ago. In Udhampur, which is one of the two Jammu region Lok Sabha seats, Mr. Jitendra Singh, who is a minister in Prime Minister Modi's government and a minister attached to the Prime Minister's office, his margin came down by over 3 lakh votes in Udhampur. So the general expectation from the Jammu region was that there is a lot of anger against the BJP that is simmering. Now, as I said, initially there was a lot of euphoria over the abrogation. So why was there this pent up anger or this anger that was building up against the BJP? And that sort of will make you understand why the BJP was very nervous about the seats in Jammu. Uh, the BJP is hardly contesting any seats in Kashmir. It's out of the 47 seats in the Kashmir Valley, it's contesting 19 seats. So naturally, if the BJP wants to retain the levers of power in J&K even after the elections, as of now it does so through the lieutenant governor because it's still under president's rule. But if it wants political power in the state, it would have had to sweep the Jammu region completely. The Jammu region now has 43 seats after delimitation. Before delimitation, it had 35. In 2014, out of 35, the BJP had won 25. And out of those 25, 23 seats came from the seats that went to polls today. So that explains, in terms of the numbers, why this particular region that went to polls today was so important for the BJP. Now, about the anger part. After the abrogation, a couple of things happened. And they unraveled over the last 5 years. The first thing was that when the abrogation happened, as I said, there was talk of ensuring justice and prosperity for Jammu. Over the last 5 years, there has been a huge spike, a huge spike in unemployment in Jammu. Also in Kashmir, but we're focusing on Jammu at more. So, huge spike in unemployment. Some years ago, the lieutenant governor of J&K stopped what was called the Darbar move. Now, the Darbar move was a practice, over 100-year-old practice, started during the time when the Dogra rulers ruled over J&K, pre-independence practice. It was a practice which meant that the governance, the administration shifted for 6 months to Jammu during the summer months and went back to the valley, to Srinagar, during the winter months. Uh, that Darbar move was stopped on the orders of the lieutenant governor. The justification that was given for it was that it is a remnant of the monarchy. It is a colonial, pre-colonial practice. It's a wasteful expenditure because you have to shift the administrative apparatus, you know, 6 months here, 6 months there, and so this was stopped. What was the actual implication of this? When the Darbar move happened to Jammu, Jammu, unlike Kashmir, does not have a huge tourism industry. Kashmir has industry, has tourism to fall back on. It has horticulture to fall back on in terms of its economy. Jammu, a lot of, and particularly within the Jammu district, a lot of the economy was sustained by these 6 months of the Darbar move. There are rough estimates of it, of course, of what it meant for the economy in actual numbers. There are figures that locals in Jammu talk about of to the tune of 1,000 crores of transactions of business that would happen during these 6 months when the Darbar, when the administration shifted to Jammu. And all of a sudden, one day, because of an order by the LG, that stopped. When that stopped, a lot of the businesses in Jammu were very severely hit. So there was a very clear economic aspect, the price of which people were of Jammu were made to pay when the abrogation and the downgrading of the state to a UT and the other policy decisions of either Mr. Narendra Modi at the center or the Lieutenant Governor in J&K happened. There were also issues of identity. A large population within Jammu, although in the overall picture of, if you transpose that on national level, it's a very minuscule population of maybe 30 to 40 lakhs. But a large population of Jammu belong to a Hindu community called the Dogras. The Dogras, of course, were also the rulers of J&K, and the Dogras is also a Kashmiri Hindu Jammu Hindu community in Jammu. Now, the Dogras had expected that because of this whole Hindutva narrative of the BJP, of this whole cultural assertiveness of the BJP, traditional assertiveness of the BJP, the Dogras will get a very good deal from the government once Article 370 is abrogated. Unfortunately for the Dogras, that did not really happen. There were allegations, and through this campaign, through the election campaign, a lot of people spoke about this from the BJP's opposition ranks and the common people, that in the last 5 years, Jammu did not have when the Lieutenant Governor was appointed, it was not from the Dogra community. There were talks that a large number of officers who were appointed at very senior positions in the government were all non-Dogras. So the Dogras didn't get representation there either. When vice chancellors of universities had to be appointed, or other, DDC appointments had to be made, different, boards and other government body appointments had to be made, the Dogras were never given a representation. Now, all of a sudden, when the election happened, the Prime Minister, the BJP, started speaking about respecting the Dogras, respecting Dogra culture, giving them their due. And so a lot of people in the Dogra community felt that they were being taken for a ride. So there was also that aspect of identity politics, the identity of Jammu, and within that, the identity of being a Dogra. What went, of course, in favor of the BJP was that there were other small communities, again, identity driven, who, because of the abrogation of Article 370 and the changes in various rules that flowed from it, got a fillip because of their identity. There was the Balmiki community, which was moved from Punjab to J&K in the 1950s. But because of the restrictions of Article 370 and 35A, the Valmikis from 1950s till 2019, or rather 2024, because this is the first assembly election, did not have the right to cast votes in J&K for the assembly election. And the abrogation gave them their right. Similarly, like in the case of the Valmikis, the same thing happened with the Gorkha community. The same thing also happened with refugees from West Pakistan who had come and settled in J&K. Now these people have been given their rights, and the BJP, of course, was banking on that we gave them the rights to vote. They are going to be our vote bank. But primarily, there was a lot of anger across Jammu on the issues of unemployment, economic issues, on the issue of the Jammu identity, on the issue of their identity as a state being taken away and being downgraded to a union territory. And that made the BJP very edgy. There were also issues which are more local in nature, which unfortunately, in the cacophony of the elections, even the political parties, the candidates, whether they're independents or they're from the Congress or the National Conference or, the PDP or anybody from the BJP's opposition, did not raise. What were these issues? If you visit Jammu today, that place is in a complete civic mess. The roads are terrible. The drainage system is all over the place. There is extreme sort of uh, a burden on the civic infrastructure, which has not been upgraded in the last 10 years, and particularly the last 5 years, that there has been an LG led administration in JNK. Uh, there were there are huge issues of water supply in most places in Jammu. The the Jammu and Kashmir administration also introduced what are called as smart meters. Now, once the smart meters came in, most people in Jammu started complaining, and also in Kashmir, started complaining of hugely inflated power bills. And so, uh, while I was traveling in JNK, I met several people who said that before the smart meters, their monthly electricity bill would come to 200, 300, 350, 400 rupees. And after the smart meters were installed, their bills got inflated to 1,500, 2,000, even 4,000 in several cases. And so there's been this demand that this smart meter system needs to go. The allegation from the Congress, particularly because Jammu is largely a Congress versus BJP fight, unlike Kashmir, where there are multi-cornered fights. The Congress and, of course, the other parties of the opposition said that the smart meters were introduced as part of the Prime Minister's larger policy of benefiting a few corporates. And so, the earlier system was done away with, and this was a anti-people move. There's also a major crisis of drug abuse that has escalated manifold in Jammu over the last 5 years. And nobody, of course, unfortunately, is talking about that. But on the ground, there is immense anger among people, particularly the elders, because it's their children, their sons, their daughters who are getting into what in the local colloquial language is called chitta. Chitta is basically a form of heroin that has become a huge menace in JNK. Aside from these, a major shift that had happened over the last 5 years is the return of militancy in Jammu. Uh, and not even so much as return, but the shift of militancy from Kashmir to Jammu. Areas in Jammu which had never been victims of militancy suddenly started seeing frequent militant attacks. Uh, when I was traveling in Kashmir, in fact, there were Kashmiris who expressed shock that the kind of militant attacks that are happening in Jammu have not even been the extent, the scale of those have not even been seen in Kashmir. And suddenly you saw these militant attacks, frequent militant attacks, targeted killings of Hindus happening in the Jammu region, while the Prime Minister and the BJP were telling the world that peace and normalcy and prosperity have come to JNK after the abrogation of Article 370. Now, that brings me to the reason why I took up these 24 seats of Jammu for discussion. When people cast their votes today, it will be these tall claims of the Prime Minister and the BJP that will be put on test. And also a sort of a referendum on whether Jammu, 5 years after the abrogation, still feels that the abrogation was good for them. The, the BJP, of course, has left no stone unturned to retain its hold over the Jammu region. The Prime Minister, the Home Minister, Defense Minister, the BJP President, uh, scores of central ministers and BJP MPs have been camping and campaigning in JNK for a long time now, and particularly in the Jammu region. The Congress, of course, is being pilloried, including by its own alliance partner, the National Conference, for having run a very weak campaign in Jammu despite issues being served to it on a platter. And whether that actually impacts the poll prospects or the people vote purely on, not so much on the campaign of these parties, but on what they have been facing, suffering over the last 5 years. Of course, we'll only know that on the 8th when the results come out. But that is the basic dynamics. These are the basic dynamics of the Jammu region. I'll briefly touch upon also the North Kashmir constituencies that go to polls today because there's an interesting element there too. This is the region that in the Lok Sabha elections had sprung a huge surprise to people. It was the victory of Engineer Rashid, the founder, the chief of the Awami Ittihad Party, from the Baramulla constituency. He had defeated Omar Abdullah, National Conference Vice President, former JNK Chief Minister, by over 2 lakh votes from the Baramulla seat. Uh, when after winning from Baramulla, it was uh, speculated that the engineer led party is going to field candidates for the assembly elections too. There was a lot of hope in North Kashmir that this party, the AIP, is going to sweep the elections because of the way in which Engineer Rashid himself won from the Baramulla seat. And then on the 10th of September, Engineer Rashid was given bail he has been an inmate of Delhi's Tihar jail for the last 5 years, allegedly involved in a terror funding case. He had fought his Lok Sabha election from behind bars and won it. But suddenly he was given bail and allowed to return to Kashmir to campaign. And that sort of broke uh, loose a lot of speculations, allegations, rumors uh, of whether Engineer Rashid was acting like a BJP proxy. And his presence in North Kashmir uh, was largely meant to, one, polarize Jammu because Engineer Rashid has been a separatist, he's been a votary of plebiscite, he has been talking, of course, of solving the Kashmir question or the Kashmir issue, and that has a counter reaction from Jammu, uh, which is a Hindu dominated region. And so there was an anticipation that his release on parole is going to polarize Jammu in the BJP's favor, while the second impact would be that Kashmir, which has not been able to have a single party majority since for the last 25 years, ever since the PDP was founded by Mufti Muhammad Said in 1999, uh, will now be even more fragmented because you'll have the National Conference winning in its own citadels, you'll have the PDP perhaps winning a few seats, and then you will have the AIP also winning its own share. And so there will be a fragmented verdict from the valley, while there will be a consolidation for the BJP in Jammu. Uh, but as the polls progressed and Engineer Rashid began his campaign and started speaking to the people, there was a general sense that he was uh, not exactly saying things that people believed made a lot of sense in terms of where he stands politically. At one point, he even indicated that if there is a hung assembly and the BJP is in a position to form the government, he would be open to an engagement with the BJP, provided that they accept his terms, which he said would be very stringent. Uh, that kind of a statement, many believe, is suicidal, politically suicidal in Kashmir for any Kashmiri politician. Because for Kashmir, the BJP, despite whatever the Prime Minister may claim after the abrogation of 370, BJP remains a party in the Kashmir Valley that nobody wants to touch. And so anybody who has the taint of being a BJP proxy or being a agent of Delhi, which is a common term used in the Kashmir Valley, uh, is not expected to do well electorally. Now, whether that sentiment has actually gone down the EVM machines, or whether the emotions that helped Engineer Rashid win Baramulla spectacularly a couple of months ago have continued even now, again, is something that we'll have to wait and see when the results come out. But the 40 seats that went to polls today in J&K in the third phase were of great consequence, particularly for the BJP, but of course also for J&K, perhaps more than the seats that went to polls in the first two phases.
The Federal and Devaki Specialty Hospital jointly present the Madurai Marathon 2024 Run for Health on Sunday, October 20th, 2024. Entry is free for all.